Welcome back to the Conference USA Roundtable. I'm your host, Jake Bolden of the Blue Raider podcast, and joining me today is 4 other Conference USA Roundtable members, and I'm very thankful for 3 of them in particular because of the amount of shakeup that we're going to have these last 2 weeks in football, as a lot will be decided in these final games. And then, of course, I've got Jake Gibson with us from Pause Up Podcast, where us and our 5-win teams can pout our way through these last 2 weeks. So I'll leave us to the back end here because there's a lot to talk about this weekend in particular, and I'm talking mostly about the matchup that is the Western Kentucky visiting the Liberty Flames in Lynchburg, Virginia. A lot hinges on postseason potential there. Liberty obviously has to win to stay in any sort of conversation for that. If you're Western Kentucky, you have to win out the rest of the way. So I'll give the floor to the home team this weekend that is the Liberty Flames. Ben Reynolds from Fan the Flames Football Podcast. Ben, so much to look forward to this weekend. What are you expecting to see? What's got to happen? I know you came in thrilled with that big win you had on Saturday.
Oh, gosh. Oh, boy. Oh, shoot. Man, it was nice to see you a couple weeks ago. That's all I got to say. Yeah. Wait, did we play football Saturday? I can't remember.
Someone did.
Yeah, I don't get me started. I haven't done my solo pod yet, but it's going to be a fun one. I'm excited about this game, though. I still think that we could win. Don't get me wrong, but a whole different team is going to have to show up on Saturday compared to this past Saturday. I mean, a lot of people could point towards the defense. The offense was just as bad. I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we won. And yet we got people, mostly our coaching staff, celebrating a 1-point win over a missed extra point and a missed kick. Like, this is not the standard. What's his name? Don Brown, I believe, the head coach, just got fired. So may he retire in peace and enjoy his life, not having to coach that football team. But boy, did he almost beat us on Saturday. And, hopefully Western Kentucky shows up like they did this past Saturday. That's all I'll say.
Yes, Steven, I won't waste any time. Let's turn it over to you. You're just as sorrowful as Ben is, I'm sure, after that loss on Saturday.
Yeah, it was a tough one. Louisiana Tech came in with a good defense, and we're as tough as we thought they'd be on that side of the ball. And then, we had a few errors, and a few times we shot ourselves in the foot by helping them extend drives with a roughing the kicker penalty that gave them the ball back. That ended up a field goal. And then we muffed a punt, lost possession there. They get the ball. They have another field goal. That's 6 points. We go for it on a 4th down from the 5-yard line, instead of taking the 3 points in a low scoring ball game. So just a lot of swing points there that, in hindsight, obviously clean up your errors and, take the points, and you're in position to win a ball game on that final drive when we were trying to go down. And, at that point we had to get into the end zone, but it was just a tough game. I think Louisiana Tech offensively, kind of flip their script. They're a more pass heavy, more pass reliant team, but the script now is, challenge our run defense. If you can win on 1st down and 2nd down against us, it can be a long day, and it can be tough for us to get off the field if you're in 3rd and short and 3rd and manageable all day long. So, that was a good recipe. All the things that went wrong, and then them holding the ball, almost 2-1 on offense. So it was a real solid win for Louisiana Tech. Now looking forward to Liberty, all year, it kind of feels like they've been flirting with disaster. Several games before they had those losses. I thought they got back on track a little bit, but then I realized they played Middle Tennessee a couple weeks ago and then UMass this last week. So it's nice they got a couple wins, but I don't know what to expect from either team at this point. We obviously both need it. We're both playing for something. To try to get into the championship game. But it's really going to depend on what team shows up. Both of us are not, coming into this game riding a high, even though they're coming off a win. We're coming off a tough loss. But It should be an interesting game. I think if we both play to our potential, it can be a really good game. But I think both of us have been inconsistent all season, especially the last few weeks.
Yeah, a lot rides, as you said. With a win on Saturday for the Hilltoppers, they will at least eliminate Liberty from any sort of contention. The Toppers then host Jacksonville State at the end of the season. But this week, they have to worry about the Sam Houston Bearcats with Ben Sorrells of March to the Pod, who's joining us today to talk a little bit about that matchup. You yourself kind of hold your own destiny in the fact that if you were able to pick up a win there, you're still in the conversation for the end of the season, where you face Liberty, which if they pull out a home win against Western Kentucky again, it just adds to more drama in Week 14. But Ben, you got to take care of business this weekend, and unfortunately for you guys, you're going on the road. What's kind of your thoughts for this matchup? I think you're muted.
There we go. Can still control our own destiny, which if you told us at the beginning of the season, you definitely would have taken. So, I mean, just to be in this spot's really cool after a year last year. Going to be a really fun matchup with Jack State. I think it's kind of strength on strength. I think a lot of us agree Jacksonville State might be the best offense in this conference right now, or maybe the hottest offense in the conference at least. And you match up against probably the best defense or the hottest defense in the conference right now with our defense. And so it'll be a strength on strength there. Our defense has only allowed 2 touchdowns the last 3 weeks, albeit against some of the lesser opponents in Conference USA, but still only giving up 2 TDs in 3 weeks is really impressive. And then on the other side of the ball, our offense has kind of struggled the past month or so after a really hot start to the year, and the Jack State defense has given up, I think, 37 and 34 the last 2 weeks or something like that. So they've been a little vulnerable too. So 2 sides of the ball that are really hot against 2 sides of the ball that are struggling a little bit, and obviously a lot on the line. Really big game here, and we still control our own destiny, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
How much of a chance do you give Sam Houston these last 2 weeks?
To win both games, I think it's going to be really difficult. I'd probably put that at 30-40%. That's going to be really tough. I think it really comes down to, can the offense start to click? And we finally started to see a little bit of it in the second half against Kennesaw State. You put up 250 yards and 20 points in the second half / overtime against Kennesaw. So you started to see it come along. That was the first game Hunter Watson was healthy the entire game since UTEP. So it was good to finally get him back, get him healthy. And he finally looked like he was starting to get his legs underneath him. So I'm hoping that progression they showed at the end of the Kennesaw game and Hunter Watson kind of getting his feet under him can help this offense and lead us to 2 more victories.
Well, while everyone else is having their fun at the top of the conference and they're all excited about playing for a conference championship, both Jakes here and our fellow representative schools are playing to be the best of the worst. Louisiana Tech, I wish Evan was here to kind of celebrate his win on Saturday, given that they've won 4 games for the first time in 4 years. I'm sure he's ecstatic about that. Mardi Gras might come early for the fans down in Ruston. Jake, this weekend we both have matchups against our fellow bottom half teams. You have Kennesaw State on the road. We have New Mexico State at home. These last couple weeks is always interesting for teams that are no longer in the playoff, or none of us are in the playoff contention, but in the championship contention for that matter. It gets interesting. So I can tell you from our boat, but I want to hear from you, Jake, about the FIU Golden Panthers. Are they going to be switching things up? Are they going to try new things? Are guys going to start playing those final games because they're not going to lose their red shirts? What is FIU going to do these last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if they give some of the freshmen more opportunities to get time on the playing field. They actually did that in the loss to Jacksonville State. In a way, it's just, I would assume, trying to confuse Jacksonville State's game plan heading into the game. And I say that because FIU's leading rusher was Devontae Lyons, who had, to my knowledge, had not taken a snap or has taken some minimal snaps at the end of some games this season. But yeah, to say I was caught off guard and Kevin was, that Lyons was getting as many reps as he was in that game, we were very surprised. And he actually almost hit 100 yards rushing, which would have been awesome because we still don't have a 100-yard rusher in a single game this season, which stinks. But that loss to Jacksonville State was tough. FIU's offense was already coming off a heater against New Mexico State the week prior, and they actually carried that into this game against Jacksonville State. They found something they liked against their defense. They kind of exploited it for the majority of that game up until the very end. Their defense obviously had the near impossible job of limiting Trey Stewart, but for the first half, they actually did a great job doing that. As the game progressed and as we got into crunch time in the fourth quarter, Trey Stewart started to break out a little bit, and ultimately Jacksonville State took the lead late. FIU had to make a final drive. I could have sworn there was a hit on our wide receiver Eric Rivers that I feel like should have been flagged for targeting. They reviewed it; it was not, and FIU lost that game. So, yeah, for the I believe it's now going to be the 5th year since 2019 that FIU will not be in a bowl game, but they are still playing for pride. I mean, after back-to-back 4-8 seasons, you can at least you at least hope that they can get to five wins to close out the season, to at least see some form of improvement. I feel like none of us would be happy if they went 4-8 for a 3rd straight year, and thankfully they do have a pair of very winnable games. Obviously, taking on Kennesaw State this upcoming week. The fact that we're favored by 9 points on the road scares me, because it reminds me of the UTEP game where we were favored by a lot and we laid an egg. And then obviously we take on Middle Tennessee on senior day to close out the season at Pit Bowl. It should be a fun one. Obviously both teams are probably going to be fighting for that 5th win at that point. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they start playing some of their freshman guys. Obviously you'll still have players like Kewan Jenkins and Dean Patterson, Eric Rivers getting reps. But based on what we saw of Devontae Lyons, for example, on the running game, I wouldn't be surprised if they start feeding him the ball more. He is a freshman. So hopefully he'll blossom into something great that we can just try to work with. But, I mean, you look all around college football, so many coaches are getting canned left and right. Our big rivals in Boca Raton, FAU, they just fired their head coach earlier today. So that was interesting to see. I mean, it's tough to say what FIU is going to do. If they don't win another game, I think there's a good chance. If they get to 4-8, I still think there's a good chance. If they get to 5, if they get to 5 games, I don't know. Then it becomes a coin flip, in my opinion. We just don't know what they'll do. FIU athletics in general has not fired a coach in a very, very long time, and I'm assuming there would be a massive buyout if they were to fire head coach Mike McIntyre. So we'll see. But obviously, a very disappointing ending to this season. I thought FIU had a very favorable schedule, all things considered, and I still stand by that. Obviously, none of us knew at the beginning of the season how good Indiana was going to be when FIU took them on, but I still felt comfortable that they'd lose that. But beyond that, man, that FAU game was winnable. Monmouth obviously was winnable in FCS school. And then you had matchups against UTEP and whatnot that the FIU couldn't cash in on. So disappointing season. And it sucks that, once again, we won't be in a bowl game and continue that streak since 2019.
Well, a great segue with the coaching carousel talk about what happened before I talk about MTSU for a second. What happened in Kennesaw. The Brian Bohannon story in and of itself is quite the drama-filled, given the fact that he was first announced that he would be stepping down, and then evidently there was some miscommunication within that room that he was actually just, or he didn't understand what he was accepting terms to, and it turns out he was fired. A lot of players are on it or have got Coach Bohannon's back. I, for one, not a fan of the firing, and really from the perspective of it's his first year in the FBS. He had a lot of success at the FCS, and everyone here at this roundtable collectively would agree that we didn't think they'd be good this year. So I think it is out of turn for the admin to think that he was going to have some sort of exceptional season this year. And as we saw a sign of it this Saturday with the overtime win against Sam Houston, that the talent is potentially there, but he has to have years to get his feet underneath him. I would have thought maybe if he had the same events of next season that he had this year, he goes 1-11 or 2-10, then maybe you exercise the right to fire him. But I thought they pulled the trigger way too quick, especially considering their one win was against an undefeated team in Liberty, a reigning champion. So again, that's my 2 cents, and I'd love to turn it over to anyone here that has 2 cents on that same issue, because it blows me away, and I think Bohannon will land on his feet somewhere.
I agree, and it's crazy. It caught me off guard that they fired him, but I thought it said a lot about him as a man and as a coach that he was at their game on Saturday. As they were walking into the stadium, he's there high-fiving players. The players obviously love playing for him. That's someone that I would cheer for if he was my coach, and even from afar, seems like a good man, a good coach that deserved more time. He'll land on his feet somewhere, whether that's in a head coaching capacity immediately or not. It just seems kind of short leash to pull that rug out from under him right now, this year, especially before the season's even over. I'm not sure that they're getting ahead of the carousel with the product that they're selling, at this point. So it's tough for him, did not see it coming. Obviously, there's several other dominoes that are falling around the G5, and it's just that crazy time of year where everybody's kind of looking over their shoulder. Is their job safe, or if you're winning too many games, is your head coach safe of being snagged and put somewhere else?
Yeah, and it's
I look
similar.
towards the. Sorry, Jake.
No, go for it.
Or Ben, I just wanted to say that. Well, it's ironic because I look towards the lack of success that Sam Houston had in their first season in FBS, and how they were and how the players still rallied around their head coach, and they've obviously been able to turn things around in year number 2 and are potentially a CUSA championship contender. And while I'm not saying that may or may not have happened with Kennesaw State, but it just feels like giving him not even a full season in the FBS level, but to not even give him just a full year, considering everything he did for them in FCS, the way they had postseason success, it is pretty wild. And the salt in the wound with all of this is how they got their one win. You felt like for sure, if anything, there would be a guarantee in coaching staff that they were able to knock off Liberty of all the teams to do it, to hand Liberty their first L in a billion years, that it would be Kennesaw. So it is very surprising. It leads to a weird statistic that I believe every FBS team who is named the Owls has fired their head coach in this season. You have FAU, you have Kennesaw, you have Rice, and you have Temple. I don't think I'm missing another, but it's a weird circumstance for sure.
Yeah, and I was going to say something similar to what you were saying, Jake, just that we could have very easily made the same decision last year. You were coming off a year, your transition year, the first year in the FCS shortened schedule wasn't that great. We went 5-4, redshirted a lot of players similar to Kennesaw, and then just couldn't really get over the hump last year. And then you see us this year win those one-score games and finally start to get over the hump. And Kennesaw was starting to show strides. I mean, beat Liberty, took UTEP to overtime on the road. They were obviously kind of on an emotional high after the firing of their coach, but they played us really tough. So it's a team that if you kept that all together next year, and I think they were going to return 80-90% of what they have, they were a team that I think could have competed next year, maybe not win the conference, but have a shot to make a bowl game. So I was definitely surprised by it, just knowing we could have made that same decision a year ago, and I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah, a lot has to be said for what went on there in the admin room, and that conversation must have been like with Coach Bohannon. And the only thing that I think really has put Kennesaw, I said to my group at Go Middle here that this is going to set that program back 5 years, and not just because they're firing their coach and because so many kids are transferring. If you make the right hire, things will turn around. But the admin doesn't have any sort of contingency plans in place to really improve the circumstances for whoever the next head coach is. They have nothing in the works for facility upgrades. Obviously, the next coach that's going to be going there, it probably has a negative appeal of what the admin is, because you just fired your coach in the middle of his first season. Like, the optics aren't great for the next coach. And so luckily for whoever it is, you're going to be in a hotbed of recruiting. You're at Atlanta, Georgia. You're going to find plenty of athletes to fill a roster there. But unfortunately for the Owls right now, I'm afraid that this is going to be detrimental to their success early on as they've made this transition to the FBS level. So we'll see. who that hire is. I'm sure a lot of eyes will be turned there to see who that is, because Conference USA is kind of the battleground for these new coaches who want to move up to the P4 level, as we've seen. Amongst other talks, we'll talk about Western Kentucky, as so there's some reports that Coach Helton may be moving on somewhere else. I can see Moff shaking in his boots at the thought of that possibly happening. But I said I would talk about MTSU, and I'll be real quick about it because there's not much to talk about. We were on our bye week this week, so we didn't lose. That's always great news. The last time we were on the field was against Ben's Liberty Flames, which not the outcome we were looking for there. We were talking all week that if you can catch Liberty sleeping, because it seems like they've been sleepwalking this whole season, that maybe you can still put yourself into a 6-win situation, because you got New Mexico State this weekend, and then you end the season on the road in Miami against FIU. And I had written that game up at the end of the season as a potential battle for the 6th win for either one of us to get to the bowl game. And unfortunately for both of us, we have losses on our schedule that we weren't able to overcome to get us there. I would say for Jake, as he already said, the Monmouth game, even the Louisiana Tech game. And then if you look at MTSU, the game that I had circled as the swing game for this year was Louisiana Tech, and we got blown out. Our breaks were beaten off on national television, and so that set us behind this whole season. We've won the games since then that I thought we would win. But since you lose the game to Louisiana Tech, you have to pick up a win somewhere else, and that left it up to Jacksonville State and Liberty, and we ran into the freight train that is Jacksonville State. Liberty played their best game they've played in probably a month and a half in Murfreesboro, so you are where you are. But I still think there are things to play for here in Murfreesboro. Derek Mason's first season, he has the potential to get to 4 wins, which would match Coach Stockstill's final season here in Murfreesboro last year, which with 60 new transfers to match last season's win total is in and of itself an accomplishment. And then if you're able to get a win at FIU at the end of the season, that gets you to 5, and you're a win better than what Rick Stockstill was last year. And again, I can't stress enough how talented that team was compared to this one, because this team, hindered with injuries, is not very talented. I do expect a lot of shakeup this offseason. I believe with signing day coming up, we've got nearly 20 guys that'll be signing on signing day, which is the most in the conference. Now, quantity doesn't necessarily trump quality when you're talking about signing, but in our regard, if you're signing 20 guys, you've got to like the 20 guys you're signing, which again, hopefully bodes well for success in Derek Mason's year number 2. But yeah, let's talk about Coach Helton there, Moff. The report has been, I'm not sure who has reported. I could certainly find out, but the report is that he is of interest for the East Carolina job. And the one thing in our circle is East Carolina, and I didn't know this until looking into it, there's a lot of money there in East Carolina for that job. Obviously, Western Kentucky would have to fork over, I think it's another $1.5 million just to match the pay of the previous coaching staff. And obviously, Helton coveted. He's been a winning coach with his limited time there in Western Kentucky. So, are you concerned there? What do you think is going to happen in Helton's career?
Well, I think Coach Helton is a consistent winner. He's a great program manager. He's a great leader of men. He runs the program the right way. He really recruits well from the transfer portal. He fields an offense that kind of recruits itself, and finds those playmakers that are underutilized in other programs, and they want to come play for him because they know they're going to get opportunities to showcase their talents and possibly go to the next level. The whispers and the interest of Coach Helton getting poached have been around this season since the Toledo game. It's things that we've heard internally, just whispers, and they've gotten louder as the season's progressed. The ECU program is definitely one of those that we have heard is very interested in Coach Helton. I'm not so much worried about if Coach Helton takes another job or another opportunity. I think if he chooses to do that, and it's in the best interest of him and his career and his family, I think he should do that. He's earned and deserves that opportunity. And if he does, I wish him the best of luck. My attention, I think everyone's attention and focus would immediately go to who is the hired replacement. And, our athletic director, Todd Stewart, has a really solid track record of making good hires during his tenure as athletic director here at Western Kentucky. So, I know the short list of replacements. I could probably name 3 or 4 of those, and most of those are familiar names to Western Kentucky. They've been through here and passed on to other places. So, If it does shake out that Coach Helton gets an opportunity to make more money and be a head coach somewhere else, I think we'll wish him well. Obviously, we want to end this season on a higher note than what we experienced last Saturday. I hope that didn't play into it at all. That those whispers are starting to grow louder. But we still got at least 2 ball games, and then hopefully a bowl game, and Lord willing, a conference championship game to play in. So, let's end this season strong. And then let those rumors shake out as they will, and then if it does, hopefully we make the right hire to kind of keep this thing going where it needs to go.
Yeah, AD Stewart is he's pretty set in his ways when it comes to hiring a football coach there in Bowling Green. It always is someone that is in some way, shape, or form tied to the Western Kentucky tree. So as you said, he's kind of hit on his last couple of hires. So I think that they'll be all right. But Ben, sounds like you've got something you want to add to the conversation.
Yeah. After we whoop you on Saturday, those rumors will dissolve a little bit. So don't worry about it.
There he is. No matter what, overtime win to UMass, he's still there. He's always there. Well, but I do actually want to turn some attention back there to the scenarios that play, and I don't want to act like I'm breaking any news or anything that I know, but the scenarios are Liberty has got to win out to at least have an opportunity to get back into it. So, Ben, I do want to turn it back into you as far as giving your team the opportunity, or what opportunity do you think your team could take here? Do you think they have a chance at doing just that and hoping they get a little help to get you in the conference championship?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. At this point, we can't really worry about who's going to win or lose. We just got to win. As long as we win out, I think we have a excellent shot of, making that conference championship. I'm not even worried about us hosting it anymore, as awesome as that would be. At the same time, I would rather us just worry about Western Kentucky and then Sam Houston. I've called it since the beginning of the year. I've been worried about the Sam Houston game since the beginning of the year. It's a Black Friday game. It's it's a road game. It's the furthest trip we'll have since New Mexico State. So it's just going to be a whole thing there. But I'm looking forward to this Saturday, and I'm hoping that we see a different team. They're at home. It's a Saturday. It's not a weeknight game. You have all these excuses you can make. Well, it's not going to matter anymore. You got to show up on Saturday.
Moff, what about you? I know you guys are still sitting in a good situation, but you got 2 tough games in the year. How much of a chance do you give the Hilltoppers to at least secure a spot in the championship?
I like our opportunity better this coming Saturday than I do against Jacksonville State. Both teams are really good rushing offenses. That will concern me in both the games. But just looking at the defense of Liberty and just how they've struggled against the lower end of the competition of Conference USA, that does give me some positives going into it. We did just play our worst game of the season. Hopefully we got that out of our system. We recalibrate our focus and come out and just play a tougher ball game, because it truly is playoff scenario for us. And then the Jacksonville State game is going to be as tough as they come. They're red hot right now. We're going to have to play nearly a perfect game to get that win, but it really starts with Liberty. We have to win that game. If we're looking ahead to Jacksonville State, we're going to get boat race like we did last year against Liberty here at home. So one game at a time, but Liberty is certainly beatable. We've seen that all season. They got the benefit of the doubt early in the season. When they were the reigning champs, they still wore the crown. Now they've been knocked around a lot this season. They've had a lot of injuries, a lot of inconsistency in their play, and they certainly can be beat. So we just have to come out and control what we can control and go win a ball game.
Well, Caleb Williams, host of the 700 Pelham Road podcast, isn't here to defend or make his case for Jacksonville, but we all agree that they are very hot right now, and obviously that rushing attack with Tyler Huff and Trey Stewart is lethal as it's run through the conference thus far with 6 straight wins. Jake Gibson, I'll turn it over to you. How do you see from our perspective, because it doesn't matter for our programs, but we are a round table. How do we look, or how do you look at these last 2 weeks? If you had to put all your money on the line here, who do you see in the conference championship after these last 2 weeks?
I think it's definitely going to be between Jack State and Western Kentucky. The only thing that can flip around is who's going to host. But I think that this is still going to be Jacksonville State's. I'm going to say they have a good opportunity. I'm still a big believer in Western Kentucky. I mean, we knew that Louisiana Tech had a pretty good defense. At least certainly from what we saw against when they took on FIU. But it's tough. I think that it's going to keep it simple, I think it's going to be between Jack State and Western. I honestly couldn't tell you who I think is going to host that because these last couple of games are so insane. Jacksonville State does have a gauntlet to end the season, to be fair, taking on both Sam Houston and Liberty. So a lot can be decided by those two games. So I still want to believe that Western Kentucky is the cream of the crop in Conference USA. I mean, I still think Veldkamp is an amazing quarterback. He just struggled against, I would like to say, a pretty solid defense in Louisiana Tech. But I do think that Sam Houston does have a decent shot to get in, but I still have so many questions about their offense, even with or without Hunter Watson. They haven't looked 100% in a while. And I think my prediction at the beginning of this season was either Western Kentucky or maybe Liberty, but I'm still going to go with Western Kentucky at the end of the day. And I do think they're going to take on Jacksonville State. I do think this loss against La Tech might have slipped up their chances of hosting, but if I'm not mistaken, Western is still a very solid road team. So I would have faith in them regardless of where the game is.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where my head's at as well. Jacksonville State, I think, is by far the best looking team. I know they had a little issue with your Golden Panthers this last weekend, but other than that game in general, they've looked great. I think that it's theirs to lose at this point, or at least their bid to lose at this point. I do like Western at Liberty just because Liberty has been notorious for playing to their competition this year, other than MTSU, obviously, with a 20-point win on the road. But I think, and also the fact of a Helton team going back-to-back weeks of underperforming, I think is very unlikely. But again, the rumblings of the coaching carousel, I don't know if that plays into what happened there on Saturday. I'll be honest, I didn't watch that game in its entirety, but the score certainly was shocking to hold Veldkamp to just 152 yards. And the rushing attack just wasn't necessarily there from the Hilltoppers. But Ben, I know you said in our private chat here, you've got a bold prediction to make about another team at the top.
Yeah, I've already put it in a chat with some Liberty fans. So I'm going to just say it here out publicly. What happens when Louisiana Tech makes a bowl and they beat Arkansas this weekend by 3? What happens? What's going to happen in our conference when that happens? Just saying.
As a fan of someone whose team also had to take on Arkansas late in the season last year, which costed them their bowl eligibility, I wouldn't count on it.
Well, it does get interesting if in that scenario if La Tech does make a bowl, because there's 4 CUSA bowl tie-ins, and so it'd be interesting to see what the 5th game would be, because right now there's the Bahamas, Hawaii, New Orleans, and Frisco, and so if you add a 5th team to it, I wonder how that shakes things up from a bowl perspective.
Yeah, that might. I don't know how many teams are going to be bowl eligible for Sunbelt this year, but we might tie them if that happens. That's not looking good for the Sunbelt this year. They're all beating each other up. So I'm just saying, because they shouldn't overlook Arkansas for Kennesaw.
Yeah,
they finished the year with Kennesaw, who just fired the coach. What happens if Arkansas loses? I'm just saying that there's another team in this conference that has done it recently. Just
right.
Let me just, if I can interject about what would be the most Conference USA thing ever to happen, or really the most Louisiana Tech thing ever to happen, is that would happen. They would beat Arkansas, and then they would turn around and lose to Kennesaw State in the last week. That's exactly what would happen. And Sonny Cumbie already on the hot seat, but to think that that could potentially happen, that would be the most Conference USA and Louisiana Tech thing ever to happen. So, guys, let's turn our attention to we do our weekly pick'em, and I want to bring this up now because Ben, you're kind of on the naughty list amongst the roundtable here because showed us this last week, and it was an easy week for the most part. You had the upset of Louisiana Tech upsetting the Hilltoppers, but fortunately for everyone, that's what everyone picked. Or everyone that participated for that matter. So, Ben, you're falling behind. Do you see an opportunity for you to gain those 10 points these last 2 weeks?
Yeah. Once Louisiana Tech beats Arkansas, I'll be right at the top. Don't you worry about that.
Get it together, Ben.
Yeah, get it together, Ben.
Yeah. Okay, Jeremiah. I feel like I'm getting attacked by Jeremiah on all sides. I'm getting attacked by him texting me saying I need to fix my headset, and now oh gosh, I tell you. You're lucky I love you, Jeremiah. Drove 7 hours to see just you.
Oh.
Not the Liberty Flames, I can tell you that much.
But our other Ben, you're missing out yourself. You got to make up some ground here these last 2 weeks. What are you going to go full underdogs?
Kind of going scratch. I did pick Sam Houston this week against Jacksonville State. I feel like most people, maybe not everybody, but most people are going to pick Jacksonville State, and I think we're a 6.5 point underdog. So does that count as an underdog win?
It's there are guidelines for those that do keep up with it. Our guidelines for underdog is the Vegas betting odds are 3 points or greater. So if you're plus 3 or greater, then you're considered an underdog.
Yeah, so maybe I can catch up there with a big Sam Houston win. So that's kind of what I'm banking on this week. I've hovered right in the middle of the pack the entire year, having been bottom 2 or 3 and haven't been at the top. So just kind of like it there in the middle.
Well, I will say at the end of the season, we are going to be getting Conference USA Roundtable merch, and it's going to say "Get It Together, Ben" on the front. I think that's a good catchphrase for this roundtable, and it seems to sell. So, but in other news, as well as extracurriculars for the roundtable, you've got playoffs starting for our fantasy team. The Derek Mason's vest did not make the cut to the playoffs, but we do have some representatives here that will be participating in it. The Pause Up podcast. And then we've got March to the Pod. And then, of course, you got 2 Liberties competing against each other in the first round with Montview Militia. And then you've got Ben, fan of the Flames. So, guys, any shakeups these last 2 weeks with the playoffs intact?
Yeah, I mean, I was on a heater. I think I was like 9-1 coming into this last week. And then 2 of my players got hurt in like the first quarter. And I think I was playing Ashton Genty, and that just didn't work out well. So, need to get back on a heater and get out there. I had Hunter Watson starting majority of the year. Haven't played him the last 2 weeks, and so trying to figure out what to do at quarterback. I had Louisiana's quarterback. It looks like he's out for the year now. He was one of the 2 that got hurt. So trying to figure out what to do at the quarterback position.
Well, who has Trey Stewart? I'm really interested to know who has Trey Stewart in this league, but my Sunbelt quarterbacks keep putting in the work for me, so I appreciate that. I didn't think that Tulane's defense would be like the MVP of my squad, but that's what they've become, along with their running back Maki Hughes. He's been hard carrying my team, and you know what? I really appreciate it. I didn't even think that Tulane was going to be an amazing G5 squad, but I think they might be one of the best. They're competing with like Boise State, if I'm not mistaken, for that top spot, and maybe even a playoff berth. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I've looked to sign and get rid of a couple of players here and there. I did see another league who had like a sort of like online. Someone did a G5 league, and this one guy pretty much selected all of Army, and he's just crushing everybody he plays against, and God, it just makes me wish that I had thought about doing that, but I'm doing pretty good. I have a good quarterback duo with Barnett from James Madison and Aguilar from App State, and they put in great numbers. But yeah, Tulane, they've been pretty much my savior all season long.
Ben, any shakeups this last 2 weeks for you to take home the crown? You've really, you and both Bens really have been dominating the fantasy football this season. So you doing anything special these last 2 weeks to put yourself atop?
I have Ashton. That's all I need.
That's what I ran into this week. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be a pretty safe play. As Jake was just mentioning, I had Army's defense, and that was kind of a for sure win for me for most of the year. They would throw up a plenty of points for me. So,
yeah, I would like to thank again Sidelines Louisiana Tech for just gifting me Ashton Genty, like crazy. Let's draft. Goodness, I can't even remember who they drafted. Crosby, the running back for Louisiana Tech. Yeah, let's draft him. Appreciate it, really do.
Wild pick to say the least, but guys, that's a lot of football talk. Basketball season is underway. A lot of us here covering each of our respective schools there. Where's everyone's heads at with basketball? Are we impressed with what we've seen? Is there much left to be desired? What are we seeing from our respective programs?
Our non-con has been hell. Our non-con schedule has not been great for men's basketball so far here at FIU. It was a disappointing game against Rice, and then they even lost to Southern Utah. They did destroy Florida National, which is pretty much what I assumed they would do, because Florida National, to their credit, they did play their guts out. But I mean, I believe they're NAIA or something along those lines. So FIU should have won big, and they did. Funnily enough, our women's team also took on Florida National, and they beat them by over 100 points, which is crazy. It was like the largest win in program history like a week ago. So I think I believe they're currently taking on the Howard Bison. They're losing to them as well. They have an interesting mini tournament they're going to next week over at FGCU, which is obviously a really good basketball school there. In Fort Myers, they have a couple of interesting matchups. But the one game that everyone's circling here at FIU, I know the Ocean Bank Convocation Center is going to be packed for this one, is on Wednesday, December the 4th, when they take on FAU. It's going to, especially now that we know that FAU is not unbeatable, considering they got bested by Charleston of all teams not that long ago. So we're definitely going to have to pack the bank for that one, regardless of how the rest of the season goes. If we can say that we knocked off FAU, that's going to feel really, really good.
Yeah, I can go next. On the men's side, it's kind of been hell also, just from a scheduling perspective. You go at Utah, at Tarleton, at Baylor, at Lamar. We have one Division I home game in the non-conference. And then we also have road trips to Pitt, Indiana, some other really tough schools. And right now we're down to 8 scholarship players. Just have really been hurt by injuries. But with all that, I think the team has looked pretty good. You were tied with Nevada kind of midway through the second half. Nevada's a really good team, beat Washington, beat Santa Clara by 30. So they're a really good team. Baylor was rough, lost by 35 there. But you beat Tarleton by 30. You beat Lamar by 15 with 8 players. 2 of those were true freshmen. Should get 1 or 2 back within the next week or two. But if they get healthy, I really like what they have. And on the women's side, we were picked last in the preseason poll, but I think they've looked pretty good to start. They beat Seattle wire to wire by about 15 at home. They were down by 8 at Kansas with 4 minutes left and forced 30 turnovers. Kansas had 30 turnovers against us, which was pretty impressive. And then Rice, who won the AAC last year and was picked second this year, we were tied with them with 2 minutes to go. Yesterday it was. So women's team kind of looking a lot better than we expected, and the men's team just needs to get healthy and get out of this crazy non-conference schedule we have.
Yeah, Western Kentucky, we've also kind of had a tough start to the season. Our first 3 games, we had an exhibition game against UAB, a really good school, won the AAC last year, picked to win it again this year. Wichita State, which is much improved with a lot of new pieces they've added to that roster. They're going to be really competitive. Then Grand Canyon, which also was an NCAA tournament team last year. So really tough first 3 games, lost all 3 of them. But have gotten a couple wins now. Played a really good Lipscomb team on Sunday and got that win. We've got Jackson State coming up, UK and Marshall and Michigan, towards the end of the non-conference schedule. So, a lot tougher non-conference scheduling. Right now, injury-wise, we really only have one guy, Tegan Moore, who was a really good freshman for us last year, who's coming back from a hip injury. Hasn't played yet this year. Was probably a projected starter. Would love to have him back in the rotation. Potentially starting. I think he'd be a huge piece to add to this team of pretty good talent. I really like where this team can go. Especially if you want to compare where we were last year at the beginning of the year and how we ended the year. All the pieces are there for this team to be really good. But we've definitely had a tough schedule and, played a little bit inconsistent, but I still think it's a really good team and we've got a shot to, have a good, end of the non-conference and then go into conference play and have a good year.
Ben, you got anything on Flames basketball?
Yeah, feeling pretty dang good. I feel good about this conference too. It'd be nice if Western Kentucky could have beat Grand Canyon and we could have beat FIU. That would have made it even better. You know what I mean? Those 2 wins right there would have really put us over the top. But I'm really impressed with a lot of these teams. I could even say with MTSU losing to Murray State. Those are the 3 losses. Oh man, I wish we could have those back. Type thing. But they're not at the end of the day, end all be alls. It seems like we've had some showings in all of them. And I was really impressed with the team yesterday. I mean, I don't know if you guys know too much about the College of Charleston, but they had a guy who was averaging 36, 37 points a game his first 3-4 games. He dropped 39 on FAU, and we held them to 10 points yesterday. And we held that team to 45, one of the highest scoring teams. It's the whole pack line defense is really starting to come out with McKay, and I'm very excited about Moffmer and Peter and Enan and Aquino. We have gotten a lot of guys and a lot more size and a lot more athletes. I'm very, very excited about this team. I'm more excited about this weekend's tournament than I am about the Western Kentucky football game, to be honest. I'm just very excited. I'm very impressed with our women's team too. They have played 2 perennial powerhouses of women's basketball and lost to them each by 16, and Duke at home, and then who was a top 15 team who had a top recruiting class coming in, and then they lost to Tennessee by only 16 on the road. One of the more iconic women's basketball programs in the nation. And then, you blow out a Cal Baptist who, they're not very good, but they really just truly showed hey, this team can play. I mean, I think they put up over 90 points against Tennessee, so that's saying something. Very proud of this team. I'm excited to see how they look. I know that, we still have to surpass the almighty Middle Tennessee women's basketball team, but I'm still very excited about this year's team.
Yeah, MTSU, we were riding highs for both our men's and women's program through the first week, being undefeated. The men's team was humbled on Saturday, as Ben already set out there for you with Murray State. That definitely a win. A team that's top 3 in the Missouri Valley Conference, who is regarded as a better conference than Conference USA. That would have been a huge win for us in regards to just the outlook of Conference USA. You already said your 3-point loss to FAU, and then the Hilltoppers road loss to Grand Canyon. So all 3 of those wins would have been huge for the outlook for the conference. But the thing is with our men's program is our coach is already on thin ice. Unfortunately for him, considering he's got a whole new team this year, it's going to take some time to gel. And we kind of saw glimpses of that on Saturday with Murray State, a player that hadn't averaged a career high of more than 14, scored 27 on Saturday. So he was a very athletic big, again, not a guy that produces those kind of points in his entire career, and we let it happen. We did a great job eliminating their guards. They have 2 very good guards in Harcum and Jacoby Wood. that we were doing our best to keep them to 26 points collectively. But when you let one guy score 27 who doesn't even average over 8 in his career, that kind of creates some problems. So for those in the league that have athletic bigs, there's tape out there that kind of shows our weak link in the front court and guarding those bigs. But women's basketball, same regard, things were going great. We went on the road, much similar to the Lady Flames, and took on Tennessee as well, and had a very similar outcome, except we were actually doing very well in the first half, had it tied there late out in the first. And we actually had it within single digits at halftime, and then they just slowly broke us open with that press, much as like what you saw with them when they played Liberty. They don't play very much defense, but they can score the ball at will, and they did against us. They scored 84, and they scored 109 against Liberty. So that just goes to show how talented Tennessee is. But this isn't the Tennessee Lady Vols roundtable, it's Conference USA roundtable. But to give some grace to us and to Liberty, for that matter, as two teams that are supposed to be tops of the ladies, they both looked very similar in that matchup with Tennessee. So it's interesting because you can't get a read on Liberty because of how tough their non-conference schedule is. And then outside of that real test in Tennessee, we haven't necessarily played anybody yet. But next week we go for Thanksgiving, we go to Fort Myers, and they'll face Purdue, who's kind of a bottom feeder when it comes to Big Ten women's basketball. But we look forward to their contest with Iowa State, who's a top 10 team. And again, on a neutral floor, hopefully you can get your feet underneath yourself and do a little bit better than you did against the Lady Vols in Knoxville. So both programs were humbled this last week, but we look forward to the rest of the non-conference. Both men too, they have their postseason or their early season tournament coming up this week, as they're in Myrtle Beach, and they're facing Ohio in the same tournament that the Flames won last year on the men's side. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do for Conference USA representation there in Myrtle Beach. But a lot of topics covered today. Guys, I hate to be so abrupt with the ending, but we are tying it down. We will see everyone hopefully back in 2 weeks as we know who our conference championship is going to be. So all eyes on this weekend and the following weekend, but don't forget to tune back into the Conference USA Roundtable again in 2 weeks ahead of the Conference USA Championship. We might even change up our recording a little bit closer to game time, if you will, as opposed to a Monday waiting all week to see what happens. So hopefully everyone listening has a great Thanksgiving. Of course, to all of my roundtable members here as well, having a great Thanksgiving until then. But guys, thanks for sticking around, and we will see you all then.